Hello everyone and welcome back to another Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite pre-release hype video. There's going to be a lot of these till the game comes out, because as I said before, Marvel vs. Capcom is by far my favorite video game series of all time, putting together two franchises which I absolutely adore. Now, one problem with Marvel vs. Capcom though is that everyone who plays it is more one side or the other. They're either a Marvel fan or a Capcom fan. I, myself, am way heavily more on the side of Capcom. In fact, making a list of top 10 Marvel characters was a pretty okay endeavor. It didn't take too long, hence this is the video you clicked on. However, it might end up being top 20 for Capcom, because obviously I am way more versed in the Capcom side than the Marvel side. That said, I have, because of Marvel Infinite, started reading a lot more of the comics on recommendations from people in the comments on here, as well as friends, as well as just popular trends. As such, I'm going to take that knowledge from my recent comics that I've been reading, along with all my knowledge of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, which this game is heavily drawing from, of which I have seen every movie, and I watch Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. I haven't watched the Netflix shows yet, but I've heard they're pretty good. I'm going to take my knowledge from all of them, and I made a list of my top 10 Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite Marvel newcomers I would like to see. So this means obviously any character that has not been playable in a previous Marvel vs. Capcom game. If they appeared in a sort of not full form, then that's okay. However, I am putting these on that are like I don't think there's anyone who that even applies to. However, let's get started with this list. And let it be said, these are my opinions. I am not a Marvel, I like the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I am starting to read the comics, but for the most part, I am not the biggest Marvel dude. However, I'm going to be looking at on terms of appearance, in terms of gameplay, and in terms of just potential story mode stuff that could be cool. So, let's get started. Coming in at number 10, we have Star-Lord. Now, we had Rocket Raccoon back in Ultimate Marvel vs. Capcom 3, and I remember when I first saw Rocket Raccoon, I'm like, who, Guardians of the Galaxy? Who? What? No, don't put that in. That's a waste of a slot. But now that the Guardians of the Galaxy movie has come out and became my favorite of the Marvel movies, I would love to see Star-Lord put in. That's not to say to take the slot away from Rocket, though I would like Groot possibly incorporated into the moveset. I do feel like Star-Lord is a character deserving of his own slot, if only for the fact that he is sort of a comedic character, which, you know, is always nice to have these very serious heroes. It's like, they're nice, but I'm not the biggest fan. He does have a very iconic design if they go with, like, the movie look of, like, the red jacket with the mask, and potentially two guns, but the one thing that makes it interesting for me would be the use of the rocket boots. I feel like rocket boots plus two guns flying around could do some pretty cool stuff with making him a very mobile, zonery type character, but not like full zoner, like not like multiple projectiles, but just like a very good, very fast character who can fly around, shoot his guns, and probably call out two other Guardians, you know, have Drax come in for a thing, or have Gamora come in. I don't think they're going to be playable. I think if anything they'll be assist only, and Rocket will probably get a slot because, oh, you gotta have Rocket, with probably like Baby Groot as like an assist, because man, you gotta promote that Baby Groot merch. But for the most part, I think Star-Lord would be a really cool character. I'd love to see his interactions with the main cast, especially because Dante will for sure be in the game. I feel like they would get along either really, really well or hate each other, and I would love to see them cross guns with their red jackets floating. I think it would be super cool. But yes, so Star-Lord comes in at number 10. Coming in at number 9, we gotta have a Spider-Man villain in here somewhere. And honestly, when it comes down to all the Spider-Man villains, the one that to me really sticks out as just being cool, both visually and sort of concept-wise, is Carnage. I feel Carnage is such a cool villain because it's like Venom sort of became this normal thing for a while. He was, you know, and sometimes Venom is good, but for the most part, Carnage, I don't think has ever been a good character. He's always just been a primal symbiote. And to have him be in with crazy animations that are going nuts everywhere on the screen, you know, possibly throwing down a thing of goo that will spawn mini Carnages, possibly any sort of changing of the body into ways that you might not even be able to do with Venom. I think he'd be super cool. Plus, of course, there have been, again, I'm not well versed in the comics, but I know there's a whole range of symbiotes from the Spider-Man comics, and to have him draw on them for potential attacks, you know, maybe one that uses like sword arms to slash or something. There's so much you can do with him that I think would make him a really interesting character that could potentially replace Shuma-Gorath in terms of the same sort of shapeshiftery tentacle thing, because no one knows who Shuma-Gorath is except for Japan. The story of why Shuma-Gorath is in Marvel is literally because they were looking through a book of superheroes and said, oh dang, Shuma-Gorath looks cool, and Marvel's like, do you really want to use him? And they're like, yeah. So put Carnage in instead of Shuma. I feel like that'd be a better move. After that, though, we have the Falcon. Now, this one might be a little controversial because I'm not just going to say any Falcon, but I do want to see the Captain America Falcon be put in. Now, Cap's already in the game, and that's kind of, you might think that's a little contradictory. However, I don't think so, because we're talking multiverse stuff, there's all sorts of stuff that can happen, but I feel Falcon with the shield can potentially do some really cool stuff. Not only does he have, you know, take on the little drone from the movie, almost being maybe like a long-range puppet fighter, but he would be a aerial long-range puppet fighter. I think there is a lot of potential with him being sort of similar to Firebrand from Ultimate Marvel vs. Capcom 3, where you sort of are based on being in the air and have air options. When you're on the ground, you're a little weaker. I feel like there's a lot you can do with him. And I've heard some people say Falcon's just a dude who can fly, but give him the shield, he'll have projectiles. I think, I'm not sure, I haven't read the comics, I think he can shoot out of it, I'm pretty sure. I might be wrong about that, but give him the guns akimbo, give him flight stuff, you know, flight is a command, he'll be able to do like pinwheel loops in the corner, all that good stuff. I think it'd be really cool. Just to have like a good aerial fighter, and honestly to replace Firebrand from Ultimate Marvel vs. Capcom 3, because while I like how Firebrand plays, I don't like that Ghosts and Goblins got as many reps as Mega Man, because that is not fair. Because Mega Man's a lot better than Ghosts and Goblins. Alright, moving on. Next up now, this one might be the most controversial one on this list. Straight up, I unironically enjoy the Howard the Duck movie. That's right, the live-action one, which I'm pretty sure was the first Marvel movie ever created. But I unironically enjoy it in the same way I unironically enjoy the Super Mario Bros. Movie, in which it is just a wonderful time capsule of the period, and I do feel like Howard the Duck would be not only visually interesting to see, but also could provide some really good references to other games. Ones that you cannot get the characters for, but Capcom are known for being famous for making. That's right, guys, we can't get Scrooge McDuck in, but put in a dude who can play like Scrooge McDuck into Marvel Infinite. DuckTales is great, and if we were to put in Howard the Duck with a move that causes him to push a cane down and bounce off enemies' heads, I would be so content. Now, there's another approach they could do, and this I'd be a little sad about, because in the iPhone fighting game, Marvel Contest of Champions, they recently added Howard the Duck, and they just put him in a big Tron-Bon-style mech, and honestly, while that is one easy way to incorporate him, I feel like it would also be bad, because we already have a character with a Tron-Bon-style mech, and her name is Tron-Bon, and I think she's really cute. So to remove her, I'd be kind of sad, but at the same time, I can't see her being brought back because yada yada yada, Mega Man Legends 3. But I do want Howard in. And it is very selfish of me to say that because I have not read his comics, with the exception of one that he guest starred in. But I do enjoy the Howard the Duck movie, and want him in with an alt based on that movie. I'm very sorry if that comes true. Alright. Next one coming up. Now, this one is one that I put a little lower on my list because it is very unlikely. However, this is one of the ones I want the most. I want Agent Coulson in Marvel Infinite. That's right, the guy who died in the Avengers and then came back for a TV show and is a lot cooler in the TV show now. You see, in Marvel Infinite, or all Marvel games, you have a very wide range of characters. You have the very, very bottom tier, which is Phoenix Wright, taking on god-level creatures such as Dormammu. As such, if you were to tell me that Agent Coulson would be too weak to appear in that game, I would call you crazy, because of the fact that he is more qualified than a lot of the Capcom characters. Now, Coulson would be really cool, if he were to use his Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. So, I'm not saying he needs to totally use them all, that'd be dumb, but, you know, have Quake come in, have Melinda come in, have all of his team have some purpose, and I feel like he'd be really cool. Give him the Destroyer gun from the Avengers when he dies, because I know in the LEGO crossover games, whenever he's playable, he has that on him. But I feel like Coulson would be a really fun just way to incorporate S.H.I.E.L.D., you know, without really going all out, but also he has a robotic arm in the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. show, so just make him Rocket Punch, you know, make him Rocket Punch, guys. Don't need Sentinel. Put Coulson in instead of Sentinel. It'll be so much better. I like Coulson a lot. I feel like he's one of my favorite characters, and I'm very happy to always see him, and I feel like he really deserves a slot on the roster in this crazy, crazy game. Next up, we have Gwenpool, who was in the leaked list, and because she was in the leaked list, I was like, who the heck is Gwenpool? I decided to pick up the Gwenpool Volume 1, and you know what? After reading it, I can firmly say I am down for Gwenpool. And the reason why is that she is absolutely the cutest character I've ever seen, bar one. Now, Marvel character. Now, that seems very selfish, but then I got into more detail and realized that she would provide a really cool thing where she has fourth wall awareness, but no healing factor and total unkillability of Deadpool. So she is like a nerfed Deadpool with, she has no superpower other than the fact that she is a girl who knows she's in the comic book, you know, because she got sucked in from another world. Our world, in fact. And I feel like not only could that lead to some fun story mode shenanigans, but also just the fact that she is absolutely adorable. You know, no pants, large boots, short hair. I'm 100% down for everything that is in her design and want her in. I'd even be down with her replacing Deadpool, but that won't happen. So make them team up instead. But no, I do feel Gwenpool would make a really good addition. If not, she would be very close to Deadpool, but we'll have to see. She's a lot less lol random than Deadpool, but the more human side of her is actually really interesting. I feel like there could be a lot of fun stuff with that. Mostly, she's absolutely the cutest character, and I want her in. After that, we have a character who, again, I didn't know about at all until the movie. We have Bucky Barnes, the Winter Soldier. Now, I think in terms of all the recent leaks, there is one that really stuck out that I feel like a lot of people are believing, and that's that Spencer will be back in the game, because one of the guys working on the game, he was a game player before he got the job working with them, like requested Spencer is the rumor, because he is Spencer's his main, and I could see that. I feel like Spencer has enough of a following, thanks to Marvel, and thanks to the re-releases of all of his games, that he could be brought back. However, I feel like he needs a worthy rival, and I feel like that rival would be the Winter Soldier. Both of them have a mechanical arm, and I feel like if they were to be either put together as rivals or teammates, it would create some very cool stuff because they're both like anti-heroes, at least if it's the remake version of Spencer. And they have very similar sort of operating styles, where yeah, they use guns, mind you, not in gameplay, and it'd be just a very interesting character to have as a teammate to Captain America in this 2v2 fighter. You know, of course, he'd probably start off as a villain, and then you get him back on your team. Plus, if the story mode of it being Ultron is hacking into, or rather, mind you, Sigma is hacking into Ultron and all that, I feel like him having the robotic arm could easily lend itself to, oh, he's been hacked, we got him back on our team, you know, stuff like that. However, I just do feel like the Winter Soldier, design-wise, is really good, and could do a lot of stuff with Spencer in the game as a rival/partner. After that, we have Squirrel Girl, who this was actually when I posted on Twitter that I got the latest Squirrel Girl volume, or rather the first volume. I had a lot of people sending me some rather vicious messages about like, oh man, the art's so terrible. I thought the art was really cute. However, I feel Squirrel Girl is honestly more for the gameplay department, and that is because she has commands over squirrels. And, you know, her power isn't super amazing until you start thinking about it in a fighting game context. If you get a character in a fighting game who has control over anything, the possibilities become infinite. Now, power over squirrels, you might be thinking, well, that's not too crazy, you can command them to do stuff. However, in the comic, she has her squirrels literally assemble into the shape of a Hulkbuster armor from Iron Man. There's a lot of stuff you could do with this that is very nutty, you know what I'm saying? But in addition, you could do stuff like low projectiles, anti-air squirrel throwing, you know, charge up nut gauges, just a lot of fun stuff. I like her design as a character, and I do feel like there's a lot of stuff you can do with her. She even has one main squirrel that she keeps with her, I forget the name, and have her be a puppet fighter. Have her have that playset squirrel at the other end of the screen. You control it like Rosalina and Luma in Smash Bros. I feel like there's a lot of potential there where you can use command squirrels on both sides, you know? Now, some might say she's a little OP. She has beat Dr. Doom without, batting an eyelash, but I feel like she would be another good addition to the story, you know, being a little more on the comedic side. But she was a heavily requested character for Ultimate Marvel vs. Capcom 3, but now that she's like redesigned and reworked, I feel like she definitely fit in this style of game. After Squirrel Girl, we have Loki. So I feel like this one is pretty high on a lot of people's request lists, because Loki, honestly, as soon as we saw him in the Avengers, everyone was like, that is a good villain. You love to hate him and you hate to love him, you know? And I feel like Loki could very easily replace, because I can't see her coming back if the roster's going down, Trish as a trap/trickster character. You know, have him placing down magic, because he is, of course, the god of tricksters. Have him place down traps on the field that when you magical style traps, so when you walk by, you get frozen into or something. Give him the staff from the movie, and you have a whole moveset with him having, you know, the thing that can shoot lasers or pointed attacks and stuff. I don't know whether he'd have the helmet or not, but if he did, give him a Battletoad style, you know, rush. And overall, in terms of like a Marvel villain, I feel like he'd be the one that would, aside from the very like huge galactic threat level ones, you know, having Thanos and Galactus and all that, I do feel like he would be a very good smaller level one on the level of Wesker in Ultimate Marvel vs. Capcom 3, but at the same time he could be good. I know in a recent comic I read he was labeled as a good guy. I have no idea why. But have him go back onto the side, or maybe double cross, I don't know. Shape-shifting powers, you could do probably something cool where maybe you'll pick Loki for your team and you'll hold a button on the character select and it will look like you're going to start playing as so-and-so, but like 5 seconds into battle, oh whoosh, no, you've actually been playing as Loki the whole time. You know, stuff like that. I feel like Loki, you know, personality-wise would be really cool. There's a lot of gameplay stuff you could do with him. Maybe even have him go half Frost Giant if that is something that's in the comics or just movies. I don't know. But do stuff with that. I feel like there's a lot you can do. And overall, in terms of just character designs, I feel like he's just perfect for the new style of the gameplay. I don't think he'd work well in the Ultimate Marvel 3 style of shading and all that, but I feel like in the new one he'd look really good. And finally, we have my number one, my most wanted character for not Ultimate, but Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite, and that is Miss Marvel, being the new one, Kamala Khan. So, Kamala Khan and Miss Marvel was actually the first comic I picked up since I started to jump back onto the Marvel train. And I don't know what I expected. I sort of knew her power was just shape-shifting, but like just changing body shape, like not actually crazy dumb Mr. Fantastic stuff. And when I started reading it, I'm like, no, I'm enjoying this. But then as it went on, I realized very quickly that the thing I like about her is her spunk. Now, she is very much a character who would be like not necessarily a comedy character, but just a fun hero type. Now, she is of course a big nerd. She plays like the in-universe version of World of Warcraft. She watches anime, reads manga, all that sort of stuff. And I do really feel like, well, some characters it comes across as like, oh wow, look at me, I'm a gamer. She definitely felt like the most realistic character. She felt like one that, as I was reading, I really grew to love her so much. And especially her costume design. Oh my god, you want to talk perfect costume designs? It's simple, but it works. You know, her costume is a modified version of the original Miss Marvel, who is now Captain Marvel and in the game. But at the same time, it's new and fresh. The red scarf is so good. I mean, you know, you got, in last game we had Beautiful Joe with the scarf and we had Strider with the scarf. Now, I feel like Miss Marvel deserves to join the scarf lineup because she is so cool. She could easily replace Super Skrull. Now, you know, Super Skrull, of course, had the power to turn to rock, invisible, and fire, but he didn't really use those as much of his stretchy moves in combat. I do feel like Miss Marvel would be the perfect character to be that long-range Dhalsim type character, except for the fact that she is actually interesting, unlike Dhalsim and Super Skrull. She would also do great to do a team-up with Captain Marvel, because of course, you know, that is her idol, who she took the name of. But overall, I just feel like Miss Marvel has so much going for her in the comics right now that represents the generation that would be playing Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite, that it'd be kind of dumb to not put her in. I feel like out of every Marvel character that I've read about like that's new, a lot of them are like, yeah, they're derivations of characters, and you know, you kind of always have to say, yeah, they're good, but are they really as good as the new version? I mean, you know, you look at all the different gender swapped versions of characters they did for a while. Hawkeye's now a girl. You know, there's a lot of stuff going on in the comics that changed him up, and you're just like, is it really the best? But the one I can say is 100% for certain an improvement is Kamala Khan as Miss Marvel, and I really, really, really want to see her be put in. I feel like not only would she be fangirling about these video game characters that she knows in the universe, but would also still do a competent job and just be a good hero. Without, of course, being, you know, too heroic. Like, she's the wonderful medium, and I really feel like out of every character that I've like wanted in a Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite game for the Marvel side, she's the one I want the most. Because I legitimately feel like the game would be not as good without her. Everyone else on this list, if they're not in, I'd be pretty much like, oh, whatever, that's okay. I can live without that, you know? Because again, I'm not the biggest Marvel fan, but Miss Marvel is so perfect that I really would be really sad to not see her in. Thank you all for watching, guys. This has been my top 10 Marvel characters I want in Marvel Infinite, and next time, what will we be back with? Probably not the top 10 Capcom, because again, that's going to take a lot more work, but maybe we'll see what else. Leave some suggestions on what you'd like me to discuss, stages, alternate costumes, anything of that sort, and we'll see how it goes next time, guys. Thank you all for watching. Ciao.